And that's Beaudesert as it was up until it was sold. And believe it or believe it not, they tried, it went down because of death duties after the First World War. They couldn't afford to keep it on. They've got Uxbridge House in London, which is now a bank. They've got Plasnoyton Embassy. They've got this great house. And of course, like a lot of great houses after the First World War, they couldn't keep the staff. You know, people didn't want domestic service. And they couldn't keep the staff. They couldn't keep the income to keep the houses, these great houses going. And they just went downhill and they couldn't keep them on. And they tried to give it away. They tried to give it to the National Trust, but there was no income to go with it. They tried to give it to the Scouts, but there was no income to go with it. They only managed to give away the land to the Beaudesert Trust. And eventually, believe it or believe it not, it went for rubble. The house went for rubble. They sold the interiors, or the oak paneling, and I'll come on to some of the other things that were sold, like the staircase. But the vast majority of the brick, a lot of the exterior brick went to reface Kensington, St James's Palace in London. A lot of the exterior brick went to reface St James's Palace. But the vast majority of it just went for building, road running. Terrible. And very, very little of it now, very little of it now remains. You can see how it was in an E shape. But it was never a very, very big house, like Kettleston Hall or Chatsworth. Never a palatial house. There's the Marquis with his riding legs on. He had riding legs and walking legs. That's him with his riding legs on. Shooting blackcock with his dog net. Now, I've put that in because you can see the chase. See how few trees there are. Most of the trees had gone by Queen Elizabeth's day for charcoal. A lot of it had gone for charcoal and for building and for charcoal burning. So a lot of, there were very little trees. Most of the trees that you see up there today is post-World War I plantation. Oh, and at the bottom, incidentally, his last six children were born after he lost his leg. He was a man's man.
Hey, find time to go to war.
Yeah, exactly. Well, his poor wives were kept permanently pregnant. That is in later life. I say in the 1820s he became Master General of the Ordnance, which is really it's second in command of the army, but was a cabinet position. You were in the cabinet as commander, as Master General of the Ordnance. He was Viceroy of Ireland twice, which led to his sacking because he was pro-emancipation of Catholicism. He wanted to give the Catholics the vote. And he was sacked twice for supporting that. And then I refer to this tic douloureux, this trigeminal neuralgia. He was put in bed for that. He suffered from it for the whole of his life. And it would put him in bed for 2 or 3 days at a time from tremendous headaches. Oh, and he also had at least, I think it was 3 subsequent operations on his stump to remove fragments of bone. But obviously without anaesthetic. He would have fragments of bone that break away from his stump that he had to have removed because they were very painful to walk on. He would have to have them removed without anaesthetic. So, and the other thing is, he was this is an amusing one. He hated the fashion for afternoon tea. In the 1840s, afternoon tea became a thing. And the ladies of the house would have to listen out for the click of his leg because if they heard the click of his leg coming down the corridors, they'd have to hide the tea things under a banquette or under a sofa. Because he absolutely deplored the idea of ladies sitting around having afternoon tea. So they'd have to quickly put the tea things under a banquette or something to hide them, because he hated it. But the other thing he did do in the 1840s was, I don't know whether any of you know about Marquis Drive. Marquis Drive is a road that he had created. It goes from the back entrance of Beaudesert through Wandering Crossroads, right the way across Camp Chase, all the way to Shugborough. And he had that created in the 1840s during a particularly bad agricultural depression, when he couldn't stand to see groups of men standing around doing things. He thought it led to, the devil finds work for idle hands. So he employed them to make him a road. And he found work for idle hands, and he had them make him a road all the way across the Chase, give the men work. And that's Marquis Drive. And you can still walk to this day all the way across the Chase. And there he is in his great old age. Now, one funny story about in his great old age, he and the Duke of Wellington became great friends later on, really great friends. But they were both extremely deaf. And they would enter the House of Lords together, arm in arm. And if a member of the House of Lords was making a speech, they would enter the House of Lords shouting at each other at the top of their voices to make each other heard. And the poor member would have to stand there and stop while these two old gentlemen shouted at each other at the top of their voices until they'd settled themselves into their seats and wait until they were settled. And they'd look up, and then he could carry on with his speech. Because no one dared tell the Duke of Wellington and the Marquis of Anglesey to be quiet. And of course, he's one of the few men not in holy orders to be buried in Lichfield Cathedral. He's buried in the consistory court under the south tower of Lichfield Cathedral. There's the column on Anglesey, erected by his tenants, which is very near to Plassenwyth on Anglesey, which you can go to the top of and get a superb view over the Menai Straits. There's another view of, rather romantic view of Beaudesert. It's never really looked like that, but it's a rather romantic view. There's a view of the long gallery inside Beaudesert, as it was. There's the great dining hall. That's probably one of the few places left from the 14th century Bishop's Palace. You can see the minstrel's gallery at the back and all this beautiful oak panelling. There's his lithograph of his funeral on 6th of May 1854, Lichfield Cathedral. There's his monument inside the south transept. And there's the plaque above the door in the consistory court, which marks the door into the vault. And that is Carrick Hill near Adelaide in Australia. That staircase, as you can see in the bottom photograph, there was a man called Sir Edward Hayward who was on honeymoon with his wife Ursula in 1935. And he heard about the sale. The great auction of all the interior fittings and everything inside Beaudesert took place in 1935 by Bagshaws of Uttoxeter. And he heard about the auction. And he beetled up to Beaudesert, saw the staircase, had it measured, bought it on the spot, telegraphed his architect and said, who was building this house for him in Adelaide, I bought the staircase, incorporate this. And The house was completed in 1939, and you can visit it to this day. And there's the Waterloo staircase from Beaudesert, and it now belongs to the government of New South Wales. And you can visit it to this day and see the Waterloo staircase from Beaudesert in that house, Carrick Hill. And that completes my talk.
Thank you, John. Questions? Questions? Bound to be questions.
I'd just like to say it was very detailed and it was very enjoyable in that.
Very good. You know, as you come up from the A51 at Longden, you see the facade with the glass fronts, the gates and the glass front. Is that a lodge house?
Oh, the Grand Lodge. Yes, Grand Lodge.
That is the lodge.
That's Grand Lodge. Yes. It was built in 1820 as part of the improvements by Joseph Potter.
And is that the only thing that's left? Right now, or are there other parts of the garden left itself?
There are most of the lodge houses are they've either been rebuilt or they are still there in part. A lot of the lodges around the park are there, or they've been rebuilt. But Grand Lodge, it used to belong to the goalkeeper of Birmingham City, the Grand Lodge. It's been really, really rebuilt and improved and refurbed. Yeah, but it used to, I think, Phillips.
Yes, he was a forward.
It was a forward,
Yeah.
yeah. He was a footballer for Birmingham City.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Aston Villa and
Yeah,
all manner of the lovely place.
but it's
Came from Sunderland.
yeah, but it's a beautiful place. Grand Lodge. That was the main entrance into Beaudesert.
It's an upper way, isn't it? Upper way up along.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's lovely, and there are several lodges all the way around the park. Smaller ones, but that Grand Lodge was the biggest one.
You said that, you know, they've done excavations up on Castle Ring. Have they used ground penetrating radar and things
Not
like
allowed.
that? That's not allowed either.
No,
Because that's completely not intrusive.
because it's a scheduled ancient monument. You'd have to get permission from English
Yeah,
Heritage,
yeah.
and they won't give it you.
Why?
Because it's a scheduled ancient monument.
Yeah, but it's non-intrusive, isn't it? It
You
makes-
say what it is, not why.
Well, try and get it. Try and get permission. It's like pushing spring uphill. Try and get permission off English Heritage.
And then these things could disappear altogether.
I know. Yeah, because
Sorry, you were talking about was it scheduled ancient monument?
yes,
So how do you get an area to become that? Is there any other examples around it?
scheduled ancient monument.
Yes.
Well,
Who gave them permission to make it that? And when?
well,
There's the pithead baths at one of the mines at Cannon.
Yeah.
The scheduled ancient.
Well, I don't know who schedules them. It's a national thing, and it's a
pyramids.
yeah.
Does it just basically mean that it's protected? and
It's very, very, very like Lichfield Cathedral is a scheduled ancient monument.
Yeah.
You know, it's the highest level of protection you can get.
Yeah.
I mean, to do any kind of excavation in the cathedral is like,
So it's like just trying to get. So you've got like like grade 2 listed.
yeah, it's well above that. It's well above that.
Question about that?
You were talking about the road that was built across
Marcus Drive.
from Marcus Drive. So was what we would refer to as Kitbag Hill,
That's Marcus Drive.
is that part of that
Yeah,
road?
that's part of Marcus Drive.
Right, okay.
Yeah, because that's Marcus Drive. That goes from crosses the A460
Yes,
and goes
yes,
up towards what was the RAF camp.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's all Marcus Drive. Yeah,
Okay,
but it was metalled by the Ministry of Defence in 1939.
yes, yeah.
But that's still Marcus Drive. Yeah,
I take
because they would have walked when it was a carriageway.
Yes.
They would have walked up that because they were very careful of carriage horses.
Hmm.
They would have got out of the carriages and walked alongside the carriages, so they didn't exhaust the horses.
I remember when I was a little lad in the Cubs going to Basildon, and there were still some of the walls left of the house about 10, 12 feet high. And the wall garden was still intact.
The wall garden is still doing that, but it's suffering greatly because the west wall is starting to slip down the hill, and the main portions of the house that are there are terribly encumbered by trees, and we're trying to have them. I've just become a guide there, and we're trying to have a lot of the trees taken down so we can see the ruins a bit better.
Yeah.
Because you can't see the ruins very well at all.
You can still make it at that time a little bit of the garden, you know, pools and full of that. It goes down the slope. There.
Oh, you've got wonderful terraced cascading pools about, and they're all terribly overgrown because there's no money. Yeah, no question.
Yeah. You know, you speak about moving the garden.
Yes.
How do you access that? Because I'd love to have a walk around this. I don't really.
Around for that bonus there.
Yeah.
Well, I've just become a guide at those there.
How do you like look that?
Well, at the moment we're just setting up how to do it. And I say just, I mean in the last 2 weeks we've started to work on it. We haven't at the moment worked out what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what we're going to charge. It's all under the ownership of the Boat Air Trust, and we're trying to get some reality into the Boat Air Trust because they decided, oh well, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll charge this much, and we're trying to get some reality into their thinking. But it's going to be advertised probably later in the summertime.
And likewise, how do you do Lichfield Cathedral?
Lichfield-cathedral.org. Lichfield-cathedral.org. All the tours are listed on there.
I'll lower the tone a bit. For the benefit of those of us who didn't have the same sex education as you in the 60s, what on earth is the umbrella cure?
Oh dear, put your fingers in your ears. The old cure for, because syphilis came in the late 18th century. Syphilis came in the late 18th century with the exploration of the South Seas. Before then, it was normally gonorrhea, and gonorrhea was cured by inserting a metal tube which opened out like an umbrella and withdrawing it. And withdrawing it and taking the pus and the infection with it.
Lovely.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you asked that.
I thought I was lying to the tone.
Is the position marked?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
yeah.
Yeah, you'll see ruins. You'll see Boat Air ruins on the Ordnance Survey.
Did you tell them where any Boat Air golf course?
Not really. If
Got to
if you find Castle Ring
Yeah.
on the Boat Air map and look east of that, about half a mile, then you'll see Boat Air ruins. Usually marked on as just ruins. It is just ruins. It is just ruins. There's very little left. So there's the ruins of all the grounds. And, I mean, that fabulous grounds. It did have fabulous grounds, and now they're all overgrown and ruined. And we're trying to get it back into something that people can see.
You're talking about the gardens? then?
Yes.
Because many years ago, I mean, the scout teams and the, people that were up about, I mean, they did the gardens. They,
Yeah.
They made it so that it was, and the Great Wall, we used to have camps and all sorts of there.
Well,
and it
it's-
was absolutely beautiful, because there's a Japanese garden there as well. and-
Yeah, well, it's terribly overgrown now.
Yeah,
It's terribly overgrown and in a terrible state. I was there 2 weeks ago, and it's terribly overgrown, and there's very little money to do anything with it. So we're trying to get it into a stage where we can take people on history walks around the gardens, and around the ruins, and show them something. But it's,
Well, I think you've got quite a number of people here who will be interested in joining you on one of the prototype walks.
yeah. It's going to be, you know, quite a bit later in the year.
Yeah,
when we're going to be
Late.
in a stage where we can do something and give people value for money. That's the important thing, because there will be we will be doing presentations as well, and probably offering maybe lunch as well.
Another question.
Perhaps I missed it, but who actually owns it then?
The Bodazet Trust,
Oh, yeah, you said that.
yeah, Bodazet Trust. We've actually they've recently had it clarified by the lawyers that they actually own the ruins, because it was not clear that the Bodazet Trust owns all the land, but it was not clear that they own the ruins. There was some legal difficulty on whether they own the ruins or whether English Heritage own the ruins. But it's now become clear that they actually do own the ruins. But owning the ruins brings financial responsibility. So, and unbelievably, in the 1950s, the cellars to Bodazet were still accessible. I find this almost unbelievable. In the 1950s, the cellars were accessible. So to make it safe for the scouts, they had the Territorial Army come in and blow them up. Archaeological, you know, gold, and they had the Territorial Army come in and blow the cellars up, and they made a hodgepodge. So we now have voids underneath overgrown trees that we know nothing about.
Let's say your White House.
Yes.
But the fence to the White House is closed, aren't they? You can't get to the White House.
Well, funny you should say that. In a couple of weeks' time, we're going. There are a group of us going back to look for the ice house. We're going to try and find the ice house. They're hidden by vegetation. We're going to go.
Oh, no, no, they weren't properly used.
Well, we're going to try and find them because we couldn't find them the other day. So we're going to try and find them.
Another question?
It was just, so the Bodazet Trust, is that the Scouts?
No,
Is that, well, where did that trust come from?
it was given to the youth, wasn't it, of the area? I can't remember who gave it, but it was that up there was given to not only the scouts and the guides, it was given to the youth.
it was. I believe it was created in the 1930s it was called the King George V. King George V. King George V Playing Fields Trust or something like that. I'm not actually certain what it was, but it was. I'm not entirely certain.
So we don't know who gave it to them, or who.
Well, the Marquis
Gave it.
Yes, the Marquis purchased a whole parcel of land and gave it to the Bodazet Trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that still going in was that started in the 1950s? That's it.
I believe so. Yes. I'm not entirely sure. I've only recently been part of it, so I'm not entirely sure.
And did they own other houses? Or just the one?
The Uxbridge, the Pagetts, as far as I know, they did. They owned a lot of property in Burton-on-Trent.
Is it? Is it on the budget? You the Oxford is
The Marcus of Anglesey.
Marcus of Anglesey, is that on risky around?
Yeah, there's the 8th Marcus of Anglesey. He lives in London. Yeah. The 7th Marquis died in 2013. His son is the 8th Marquis. Yes.
Is the one Boston is national trust?
Now that he doesn't live there any longer. He's given up all ownership of that. He lives. The 8th Marquis lives in London, I believe, and he's got a son, so there will be a 9th Marquis.
Okay, I mean, thank you. I think we could continue because obviously you touched on subjects that people know some about, but not enough, and need to find out more. So, I mean, thank you very much, John.